Joining us in studio right now, a former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He followed the three previous to him, George Armstrong, Dave Keon, and Darryl Sittler. Rick Vaive became the first Toronto Maple Leaf to score 50 goals and did it 3 seasons in a row, surpassing that mark. He's just published this brand new book, His Life in Hockey and Beyond. It's called Catch-22. Welcome to the studio, Rick. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
What made you finally decide to sit down with Scott Morrison and put your life story to words?
You know, I think probably the reason was that, well, I'm not getting any younger, obviously. And then we had a grandson that was born last, actually 15 months ago. And then I started, you start thinking of things, and I wanted to get the story out, before I got too old, and something that my grandson can read when he gets old enough. And, I just thought the timing was now.
Did you approach Scott, or did Scott approach you?
No, I approached Scott. He's the only guy I would have written a book with. I have a good relationship with Scotty, and we talked about it, and then we went to Penguin Random Publishing House and sat down with them, and we hammered out a deal, and then we started working on it.
What was that process like, working on this book?
Long, very long. It was a lot of hours on the phone. I got to give Scotty a heck of a lot of credit, because, he's the one that had to put it on paper and put everything together, and then we'd have to go through the paragraphs and make corrections and so on. So I think we started in October and finished the end of April.
April of 2020.
Yeah.
So getting this book out during the COVID-19 pandemic, really hard for you to promote the book. How are you going to promote the book these days? Yeah,
doing a lot of, social media, television, radio, those sorts of things. And then we're going to have some, I believe, some Zoom things later on in December. And they delivered 300 book plates that I signed, and some that both Scotty and I signed. So those will be on some of the books. We'll get it done somehow.
Before starting to work with Scotty, did you read Doug Gilmour's book or anybody else's like that, just to see what they revealed?
No, I didn't actually. The only one I've read was Clint Malarchuk's book. And
you make mention of that in this book as well.
Yeah, and I read that in like a day and a half. I couldn't put it down, and and then that was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So that kind of got me going a little bit too, and what he went through, and so I wanted to get it out there about my life and what it was like, because I have a feeling that most people out there probably look and say, oh, he played 13 years in the NHL. His life must have been perfect, and now he's a millionaire, which I'm not, of course. And so anyway, I just wanted to kind of tell my story so that people would understand that, we're human beings like everybody else. There's hurdles, and there's things to overcome.
There's 2 A words that I'd like to focus on in this interview. You talk about anxiety and you talk about alcoholism quite a lot in this book. Mm-hmm. Your battles with alcohol really started at a young age with the family environment in PEI.
It's kind of a maritime thing. It's like, they love to get together and they love to drink, and they love to drink a lot. And unfortunately, in my mother's family, there was some alcoholism, and more than likely I got that gene, I would think, because I think it is hereditary. And, I started drinking at, I guess, around 18. And, but over time, with the anxiety, I didn't know I had anxiety, and it was never diagnosed by the doctors. And so alcohol was the go-to. And unfortunately, it got to more and more.
Well, the hockey world is rife with drinking after games.
Yeah. Back then, having one of those big Rubbermaid garbage cans full of ice with beer in it was, not uncommon. And after a game, you'd have a few, and then you'd go out and have a few more. And it was kind of part of the game. And you know, team lunches were called or whatever, and if you didn't show up and have a couple, you know, they were going to let you know it. So, you know, it wasn't the greatest thing for me, but you know what, I'm proud of the fact that I was able to overcome it.
Through the years, you lost some close friends through the hockey world, through alcoholism.
Yep.
And is that what made you turn things around?
No, that was a long time ago when I was 35 actually, and then started again for a brief 2-year stint, and then 9 years ago went away and got healthy and strong, and then it was after that where, you know, I met with Greg Terrian and several other guys that I played with that were having big time problems, and you know, lo and behold, it didn't work for some of them, and Greg passed away, and you know, so some sad moments when those things happen, especially when you were there trying to help and it didn't work, because you know, you never want to fail, you always want to succeed, and if I had got one of those or two of those guys, you know, cleaned up and they were still alive, that would be a big win.
You had the driving under the influence charge. That was a very high-profile case as well, and certainly not something that a captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs would expect to be tied to.
Well, no, and it was a long time after I played in Toronto, after coaching and everything else. But you know what? It is what it is, and you know, the court proceedings went favorably for me, and you know, there was a lot of things within there that I won't get into, but those were 2 very, very difficult years. No work, no appearances, nothing, and you know, so during that period, a little bit near the end, it got worse and worse, and that's when I decided, told my wife, I said, I got to go away and get some help.
Rick, going back to your days with the Maple Leafs, I mean, first of all, getting that C handed to you at 22 years old, according to the book, you really felt that you were too young to take that on, but you were also reluctant to refuse it.
Yeah, I was. I didn't think I was ready. I needed a year or 2 more in the league before I felt comfortable enough to be a captain. But Harold Ballard, who didn't ask me, just told me I was a captain. I had already been traded once, and I figured if I said no, he was probably going to say trade him.
He was vindictive.
Yeah.
Known to be vindictive.
Yeah, and cheap and crazy at times. And I just thought that a trade would have happened right away, and I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to stay in Toronto, and I was very disappointed in '87 when I did get traded. It was very, very emotional for me.
That's very clear in Catch-22 as well. Being the first Maple Leaf to score 50 goals, there was a lot of big names that came before you, but none of them had done the feat. What was that like? What was that feeling like?
Well, it was fantastic, obviously, but I didn't even know until I got to about 45, and then one of the guys in the press said, you could be the first player, and I looked at him, I said, you got to be kidding me. Like, all those great players that played for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the years, and none of them has ever done it. And I was shocked, and so it was quite an honor to be able to be the first guy to do that. And it was, you know, I mean, it wasn't as good as winning a Stanley Cup, but it was probably pretty close.
When you and Bill Derlago came over from the Vancouver Canucks, I remember that moment. I remember the announcement. And as a Leafs fan, losing Tiger Williams, that was very difficult for, I think, a lot of Leafs fans to see Tiger Williams go.
Yeah, I mean, he was a very popular player, and Tiger's a great guy. I've played in alumni games with him, and you know, sat down, we've talked, and but Vancouver kind of needed a guy like Tiger at the time. They had already traded away a lot of the veterans and their toughness, and then, you know, lo and behold, I think it was 2 years later, they go to the Stanley Cup final. Maybe long term, it wasn't the best trade for them, but at the moment, that's what they needed. And you know, Billy and I, as far as Harry Neal was concerned, were expendable.
Do you think that eventually Rick Vaive, number 22, will see his number retired, will finally get his place in the pantheon of Leafs greats?
Well, hopefully. You know, you always hold out hope, and you know, first and foremost, it would be one heck of an honor to have that done, and you know, with a crowd of people in the stands, hopefully, if it ever does happen, and with my family there, it would be one of the greatest nights of my life. I'm sure.
Is that part of the reason that you wrote this book?
No, that had nothing to do with it. I just wanted to get my story out there and my life, and you know, just to kind of show people that, you know, we're human. We're not just hockey players. We're human beings. We have lives, and there, like I say, there's hurdles and there's obstacles in your way as you're growing up and throughout your life, and you know, the guys that make it to the NHL and stay for a long period of time, they've found a way to overcome those hurdles. And, you know, it wasn't easy, but I did as well.
Rick, thanks for joining us today. And for our viewers, Catch-22 is the name of the book. It's available through Amazon, and other online retailers. Would make a great gift, I would say, Rick, for Christmas for the Leafs fan in your house.
I would think so, yes. Thank you.
Thanks again.
My pleasure.